So, head on. It's probably Akin's most famous film, I would say. It won the Golden Bear at the Berlin Film Festival, and it's got the highest rating of all his films on IMDb, I would say. And the film stars a couple of people. Well, it actually starts. So we mentioned like he uses a lot of the same actors in his films, or at least he did kind of up to 2009. So the lead in this is Birol Unel,
who is mental. He is
absolutely mental. Yes, he appears in Imuli in a small role in a bar
as a mental Hungarian gypsy type. So.
Yes, which is very appropriate. And he stars in Soul Kitchen.
Yeah, as actually, oh my goodness,
as a mental character in that as well.
He's okay. So in Soul Kitchen, he plays a knife-throwing master chef of gypsy origin, and he does not mince his words, if you pardon the gastronomical metaphor. Pun. He's great. But of course, Gegen is the definitive Birol Unel film.
Yeah, so he plays our main character, who's Chahit. Mm-hmm. And the lead female role is played by Sibel Kekili.
Shout out to all you Game of Thrones fans. Of course, she is the wonderful Shay, the characterful courtesan whore who makes her way up the House Lannister family tree.
Oh, okay. I don't watch Game of Thrones, so this means literally nothing
Boo.
to
me. She basically plays pretty much the same character.
Yes. So, before I go into the story, obviously we're going to be talking about this film in great detail. I don't think there's going to be in this which is going to upset people, so you don't need to worry about being offended or anything like that. But if you would actually like to watch this film, I advise you to watch the film and then come back and listen to the rest of the show. So, Miro, what is the story of Gegen
Well, the story of Gegen follows the two lead characters, Chahit and Sibel. They meet when they're both committed to a mental institution after their respective suicide attempts. And Sibel promptly begins propositioning to Chahit, but not what you think. She demands that he marries her. And the reason that she wants him to, a complete stranger, to marry her is because he is Turkish, and as such, he will be accepted by her family. And once she's married off to him, she can live her own life, have fun, and basically, become emancipated. So it's sort of like a paradox, really. And as the story unfolds, they begin to change one another's lives, and their pretend farcical Turkish marriage actually becomes a very real but troubled romance. It does not end well.
No, it doesn't. As well, all of his films pretty much don't have happy endings, bar like a couple.
In July ends really well, as does Soul Kitchen. But
Soul Kitchen does, yeah. Soul Kitchen's got a very kind of last minute kind of saving the day.
It's very Shakespearean in that sense. Everyone marries everyone else and lives happily ever after.
Yeah. So the first thing that you see, and you get a few of these in the film, and they're these musical interludes, mm-hmm. where you've got like a band playing this is very traditional Turkish music.
Yes.
And they're used, I'm assuming, to break up the story into sort of sections and chapters, I guess.
Yes, 5 in total. So there are 5 interludes. The film begins and ends with a musical interlude, which is a very static shot of of a well-known, it's a Romanian or a Balkan Romanian brass band that plays a Turkish band in this instance. But it's
that's all the same,
shot.
really. It's all like sort of Southeast Europe.
Yeah, you can get away with it. I think it's significant that the subtitles in pretty much all the different versions give you the lyrics of the song in Turkish. So the lyrics are significant, and the lyrics of the first song feature the words "I'm troubled over you," which kind of sets the scene nicely. So it's really about the loss of love or unhappy love. The whole thing is all messed up, really. It's not a good date movie.
And one of the things I really like about the film is the music in the film itself. So not just the Turkish music, which is always awesome in his films as well. So he uses some quite well-known songs. So one of the songs that he uses sort of in quite a prominent scene is Temple of Love by Sisters of Mercy, which is a great song. I really like that.
It's a tune with a CH, if you will. Actually, the guy who produced the music in this film is Alexander Harker, who is well known as a member of the German experimental band Einstürzende Neubauten. So Blixa Bargeld's band. And yeah, it is such it's such a killer soundtrack. Both the score and the soundtrack are fantastic, and I never cease to be amazed by the variety on the soundtrack. I mean, it really goes. It spans the genres, you know. It goes between traditional Turkish or Balkan music. It sort of goes to early 2000s German rap, then it goes into this 1980s like post-punk goth rock, then it goes into Turkish pop music when they show another familiar scene of Fatih Akin films, the Turkish disco. Then it goes to, stuff like Depeche Mode, which is kind of like the anthem that runs throughout the film. And then just all sorts of weird stuff. And even, it even goes into like some blues. Like, do you remember when the song, how does it go? After laughter comes death and tears. I think Wendy Reen, plays that. And that's another example of a song that actually carries symbolism in the lyrics. It's very carefully crafted, because when that song starts playing, when After Laughter starts playing, that's when it all goes horribly wrong. I mean, you're going to know that you know that death and tears are coming.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned that the Depeche Mode songs, I Feel You, because that is used in quite interesting... yeah, sorry, I thought I'd burst out into song here like I'm in a musical.
It's a wonderful song.
Yeah, it's a great song. That's also a tune, like you said, CH.
Yeah, that's a great song.
But it's used in a really interesting way, I think. So the first time it comes up, it's when Shahid, he's at bar, he beats up an old man for calling him a derogatory term that I won't say on the radio. And that song's playing, and he drives his car into a wall on purpose, very self-destructive, possibly trying to commit suicide. It's not necessarily clear, but it's a very sort of, self-destructive act, shall we say. And then later on in the film, what you get is Sybil is in a bar / disco in Istanbul, and that song plays again when she's doing a self-destructive act in and of itself, sort of getting high and then having a fight with 3 guys who kick shit out of her, which we'll go into in a minute, because it's kind of one of the only things in the film that's not really very pleasant.
No.
But yeah, I thought it was used in quite an interesting way, some mirroring two situations very similar from like the main characters.
Yeah, I think it's to me, I've seen this film a good few times, and I realized today that one of the things that this film is about is the sacrament of marriage, and how essentially a sham marriage becomes a real marriage, over the course of time. And it talks about, I think, personal responsibility, the fact that whenever feelings are involved, whenever love is involved, whenever sex is involved, it ends up changing people, and it can have the most dramatic and the most unpredictable repercussions. In this instance, manslaughter. Because of course Shahid unexpectedly kills a man who is insulting him and Sibel and their arrangement, and it comes as a shock to him and to Sibel and to everyone who witnesses it. He kills a man angrily in a bar. I think it's the owner of the bar, isn't it? Nico, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of the main story itself, how I view it is it's almost like a Shakespearean, or it's almost like a Jane Austen story where you've got these two people who are getting married, and it's not for love, it's for like convenience on one person's end. And to start with, they don't really get on with each other. And, he's not really fussed that she's going out and she's fucking all these random guys. But then he kind of starts getting attracted to her, and he starts falling in love with her. And then the fact that she's doing it bothers him. And then she doesn't really want to reciprocate. And then she does. Again, she starts falling for him as well. And, which is very kind of cliche. This kind of thing you would expect to happen in a story like this. So what I was going to say is what makes it stand out more is, one, the film is really intense for like the first hour anyway, because you've got these two characters who quite frankly are batshit insane, mental. So they're very self-destructive. Him more than her, but she's very self-destructive as well. And yeah, the first time I saw this, I was just completely blown away by it, because I hadn't really seen anything like it. No. And I think another, just coming back to this idea of the sacrament of marriage, the idea that two people truly become one, one flesh, and if before they're two different vessels, at one point they become one vessel, and they take on one another's pain, and in doing so, they cleanse one another of their pain, because we learned that Shahid is a widower. He lost his wife Katerina, who's very much a German punk artist, and this happened a long time ago, and he's gone through a lot of very destructive changes, and it's really his second marriage to Sibel that brings him back to life. I mean, by the end of the film, he's really looking the best that we've ever seen Birol Unel on screen. Yeah, he kind of, has had to clean up, and he's had to have a shave and a haircut and stuff like that.
German prison
supposed to have been in prison
will do that to you. Yeah, I was going to say.
I imagine it would, yeah.
You get a free haircut.
I think you get that in most prisons, in fairness. In terms of Akin's films generally, how would you compare this? Because I think it's quite interesting in terms of where it comes in his filmography, because this is almost like a turning point.
Yeah.
Because his first film is very kind of raw and rough around the edges, but it has a definite visual style. Now, that visual style is mostly Guy Ritchie, admittedly. But at least it had a style. And then Im Yuli is very different from that, but again, it's still very, very I don't know, it's got what I call sort of fairly kind of kinetic kind of camera work. It's not got like fast cuts or anything like that, but I think the camera moves in a very graceful way. I think that works a lot. And this is kind of like a step up from that again, but it's kind of like a logical progression. Whereas the films after this are more portentous, I would say. Like he's going for like a barbel, so in your E2 kind of like 21 grams / barbel kind of feel.
Definitely. I think that Head On is a very stylish film. It's a film that manages to combine a grittiness and a poise. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, so it's gritty in terms of, and performances are very, very raw. Absolutely, particularly the two main performances because they're so kind of unhinged in a way and very, very intense.
But also the
It's not
sets,
like-
the settings. They're also very, there's the kind of the Hamburg rock underground. There's, Istanbul's less savory quarters. There's a lot of that.
Yeah.
Also, I think it's a film I'd say more than any of his other films that we've seen. It's a film with a very keen awareness of colour. It has a very carefully defined colour scheme, which is sort of red, black and white, I would say. And everything else, it's these three colours that sort of punctuate the narrative, and these colours are integral to the plot. Red being blood. Repeatedly, we see the main characters, covered in their own blood, or someone else's blood at times.
Yeah.
And even the way the set design when they show the Turkish wedding. I mean, there's a really clear sense that the white is being punctuated by red. Sibel's dress is white, but it has kind of like a red ribbon, and same with the decorations, and that reminds us sort of the bandages and of her cuts from her suicide attempt. And also it reminds us of Cahit's drunken dancing, if you remember that wonderful scene that takes place in Der Fabrik, apparently a real venue in Hamburg.
All right. I don't remember it when I went there, in fairness, but
Why
would I know?
When you went to Hamburg?
Yeah, I've been to Hamburg a couple of times. I used to, when I was at school, I was part of the German society when I was there, and we used to have to go to Germany quite a bit, as you can probably imagine.
That sounds very suspicious in light of some of the films that we've discussed. What is this German society?
Yeah, because I was really good at German, I had to do extra German,
Oh, wow.
essentially, when I was at school. The kind of, what am I thinking of? Fuck. Like it's almost like I'm being punished for being really good at German, essentially. If I was okay at German, it'd be fine. Or if I was shit at German, no, I have to be good at German. So if I had to do extra German, and we just ended up having to go to Germany a few different times. So I've been to like Cologne, and I've been to Munich a couple of times. I've been to Nuremberg and Frankfurt, and Hamburg. I've been there a few times. I've been to music festivals in Hamburg and stuff as well.
I've been to Nuremberg too.
Yes, I know, it's great, isn't it?
It's a good place.
It's a really cool place, yeah. Actually, it's quite interesting. So talking about this, so it does sort of bring me to like, Germany, the city itself is almost like a character in the film. If you watch any kind of film set in Germany, the city itself is very important. Now, the obvious kind of film that I think of is, Wings of Desire.
Another one of my favourite films, but that's a perfect date movie, so it will never feature on this horrible podcast.
Well, there we go. No, very true. Or what about City of Angels? Have you seen that as well?
Yeah. Just cut the word date. Just just cut the word date out of worst date movies ever. Yeah. I think it possibly has one of the most ridiculed scenes in it. Actually, me and my sister keep ridiculing this scene because we can't get over it. You know, at the very end where Meg Ryan is cycling in slow motion and she puts her arms out and the song "In the Arms of an Angel" plays. You just think, lady, that is not safe. That is not a good idea. You're setting a very bad example. I feel no empathy for reckless cyclists.
Isn't that just E.T.?
No.
Was she expecting to sort of fly in the air?
I don't know what she's doing, but, she shouldn't be doing it. I mean, another film where that happens is One Day with Anne Hathaway, that's based on...
Oh, not that film. Oh, fucking hell. Is that where she has the really shit accent for the whole film? She's supposed to be Northern.
I think I blocked it out, but yeah, the book's not bad. But yeah, why are we talking about this? Look, head on.
Why are we talking about One Day? Bring it back on topic.
Head on, and those films have nothing in common. No.
But no, I mean, in German films, and I was going to use Possession as an example of this as well, where again, that's set in Berlin, and Berlin itself is very, very important in Possession, because at the time, this is when the Berlin Wall was up, and the film is about a divide between two characters. Mm-hmm. So you'll find films set in Germany, the where the film is set is very important, and Hamburg, bring it back to Head On, as opposed to City of Angels, is kind of it's pretty important, I think. And Istanbul as well.
Istanbul is very important. Mm-hmm.
In contrasting sort of the second half of the last third of the film, which is more sedate compared to the hour before it, in terms of kind of like pacing and stuff like that. Again, it's got a vibe, but whenever he sets stuff in Turkey, it does feel different from when he sets it in Germany. This is what I found. Even in something like Edge of Heaven, mm-hmm. the story when it's in Turkey has a different feel from when it's set in Germany.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
At least that's my experience.
I'd agree with you. I think he's doing something very similar in the way he sort of gives us that kind of visual distance between Germany and Turkey. Like he always shows like the plane going one way or the other. He almost always shows passport control. He in the case of Edge of Heaven, obviously with the deaths of the main characters, he shows the coffins being taken either to or from Germany. So there's definitely a very conscious desire to show that difference between the two countries. And speaking of that, I was kind of thinking about the symbolism of the title, Gegen die Wand, head on or against the wall, literally is how Gegen die Wand would be translated. There's actually a ton of German rap songs called Gegen die Wand. Like, I wonder if that's intentional. Anyway, I used to always kind of focus on the Gegen, on the against, that being the moment of collision between Shahid's car and the wall, that literally, against the wall, that happens. But for some reason, this time I kind of thought about, the wall. I mean, what does the wall mean? Obviously, you mentioned a very important wall in German history.
Very much, yeah.
The Berlin Wall. But I was kind of asking myself, what is the wall and what is the wall separating? I mean, Head On, I think more than any other film that we've seen by Fatih Akin, has a very keen sensibility of duality, binaries. it's constantly juxtaposing opposites, like, you know, life and death, tradition and modernity, Turkey and Germany, you know, traditional Turkish music and Western, you know, underground rock, parents and children, male and female, kindness and cruelty, freedom and captivity, you know, childhood and adulthood, innocence and depravity, joy and pain, the past and the future, you know, the real and the fake, even water and wine. Do you remember the scene in Istanbul where Cahit, fresh out of prison, goes to meet Selma, Sibel's cousin, to try and track Sibel down in Istanbul, and he asks for a glass of water and she orders wine, and it's almost, you know, it's very well considered, that scene where you see a waiter bringing them, you know, wine and water in, you know, in identical glasses. And that kind of shows his transition, you know, from reckless alcoholism to sobriety, you know, redemption. Sobriety and intoxication, you know, that's another thing. So it's definitely a film that draws, you know, a lot of lines in the sand, but that has, you know, the characters kicking at that line constantly, you know, going from one state to another. I think it's a film about transformation and about kind of pushing through that wall, or rather, you know, crossing it, climbing over it.
Yeah, or it could be in terms of, like, you know, the two characters, their mental states. In that, I mean, at the start of the film, he has it's a visual metaphor, isn't it? He's hit the wall, as in his life possibly can't get any worse than it is already. And yeah, he will either have to completely self-destruct, or he will have to kind of start again, as such. So it's almost like hitting a glass ceiling, sort of that analogy as well.
Yeah.
Where you kind of feel trapped.
Well, their relationship is an absolute car crash, but the irony is, in his own words, that without Sibel, he wouldn't have made it. That, you know, this drama of theirs, it becomes cathartic. It becomes the crucible, you know, in which he is purified and transformed.
Yeah, and in terms of, I mean, you already mentioned it, what most kind of reviewers have picked up is the you know, you said the contrast between Turkey and Germany, in that Sibel is from, like, a very traditional Turkish family. I think they're clearly meant to be Muslim, because there's this idea of honour. So she, through her, well, sleeping around, put it politely, she has dishonoured her family and things like that, which is why she has to go to Istanbul in the first place. And so she is sort of forced in this very, very heavily Turkish kind of family environment where she wants to be German, essentially. She wants to have the freedom to do whatever she wants. Whereas Cahit, he almost is like the complete opposite in a way, because he has all this freedom and he's completely unhinged, and he's, you know, drinking himself to death, and he's very unhappy. And it's through almost forcing himself in this, you know, marriage of convenience, so to speak, that it actually sets him on the right path.
Yeah, that's very true. I think another thing that I can add to that is what happens in the story is that both characters end up confirming the worst racial stereotypes, you know, I mean, about Turkish people in Germany, because obviously the Cahit's murder of Nico, it gets into the tabloids. So, you know, a very painful scene is one where Sibel's brother is sitting in his workshop, flipping through the local tabloids, and then he takes the papers to the parents to tell them what happened. And this is sort of, you can see this, you can very much see this in the papers, Turkish man kills German over love dispute or something, it's effectively, it's presented kind of like an honor killing. And we get a foreshadowing of it where Sybil is basically telling Nico to clear off, and he's having none of it. And then she shouts at him, get lost, I'm a married Turkish woman, try anything and my husband will kill you. And then that warning, I mean, she's saying it ironically, isn't she?
She's just saying it just to kind of get him to fuck off, basically.
Absolutely. And I mean, he's known this, husband that she's referring to for many, many years. And he hardly expects that from one of his regular patrons. But there you have it. It's the passions, basically. It's a story about how people lose control of their actions, of their feelings, when people think that they can carry on having fun and that they would never have to settle a bill in one shape or another. Responsibility catching up with people, whether that being prison or having a complete breakdown, or in fact deciding to, when Sybil decides to stay with her new family instead of running off into the sunset with Shahid.
Yeah, which is very sad.
It is sad. But is it though? Like, it's sad for us because we know the story, but it's probably the right move. It's finally her becoming an adult, basically. And feeling, the weight of responsibility and making a decision that is based on, on what is right and honourable, if you will.
Yeah, and it's about two people who are absolutely perfect for each other, but they also, in a way, unintentionally bring out the worst in each other as well, because they both have these destructive impulses, and it's through their forced separation that they kind of stop acting in those destructive ways, and they change and they become better people. So you don't know if they could go off and they could sort of become destructive again in that way.
Yeah, I mean, their marriage is finally consummated in Istanbul after Shahid comes out of prison and after Sybil is well and truly settled with her new young family. And that's kind of what ends it. It's a film full of paradoxes. Once they consummate their marriage, they can no longer be together, it seems, or their universes will implode.
Indeed. Now, these are the worst date movies ever. Now, in terms of other films that we talked about, there is nowhere near the level of stuff which maybe would make this a bad date movie, but there are a few things in there, otherwise we wouldn't be talking about this at all. So there is a sexual assault which happens about 2/3 of the way into the film, which is very short and you don't really see anything, but it's there.
You don't really see anything? What?
It's not I Spit on Your Grave. Come
right,
on,
well, if that's your yardstick, Greg, you don't need me to bring sensitivity to the show. I don't know. It's a horrible scene. It's absolutely horrible. You think that Sybil can't go any lower, but then she sort of completely loses control of her faculties and becomes sort of like a strange kind of lapdog of a local bar owner who, just kind of rapes her on the barroom floor after a horrible party where Depeche Mode's I Feel You is playing. Yeah, it's not a good moment.
No, I'm not suggesting that
She's
it's
not
like,
resisting. She's not moving at all. I mean,
no, she cannot say no.
no, she cannot say no. And then he tells her to get out, and it's horrible. I mean, the emotional impact of that is far greater than any. Than okay, let's say a more graphic scene would have had. I mean, for me at least.
Okay, it feels like I'm experiencing deja vu in this conversation. Okay, fine.
Why?
All right, but that's an inside joke for anyone who's listened to my previous podcast. Let's put it that way. Okay, so we got asexual assault of some description. Let's put it that way. And we've got her getting beaten up by the three guys and stabbed.
Yep.
The stabbing bit is quite important. And we got stuff like suicides. We've got people trying to, self-harm.
Yeah, we've got 4 suicide attempts.
Oh, okay. I didn't count, so okay. You're clearly paying more attention than I was.
Or maybe 3, actually, because we don't see her the first time. But we see her slashing her wrists twice, and we see Shahid going against the wall.
Yeah, which is I think is a suicide attempt. I think. Well,
yeah,
I think it counts.
As is her shouting at the men who beat her up, because she clearly wants them to kill her, because she just keeps insulting them and they keep hurting her. So, yeah, that's 4.
Yeah, and there's other stuff as well. So there's a scene that kind of stuck out in my mind, which is Shahid having a conversation. This is where he kind of realizes he's in love with Sybil, and what he does, he's got these shot glasses on the side of the bar, and he breaks them with his hand, and he's sort of grinding his knuckles into the broken glass on the bar. So yeah,
we've all been there.
Yeah, we've all been there on a night out, feeling a bit violent, yeah, it's happened to all of us at some point. But I mean, and there's nudity as well. I mean, I'm not fussed by nudity at all. But some people might be.
There is nude post-coital backgammon. So Fatih Akin has style.
That could put off some people, I suppose. Yeah, okay. But other than that, there isn't really anything else I can think of, anyway, in terms of that might make this a bad date movie.
I mean, in all honesty, do you think this is a good date movie? Like,
okay. Oh, fair enough. Well, okay, you're forcing me to go to running the show. It's my show, damn it. Okay, I mean,
I am commandeering this vehicle. I've always wanted to say that. I've always wanted to say that. No, but what I was saying is, how would
seen
it
too many movies. That's what it is.
Carry on. Yeah, Meg Ryan, I am commandeering this bicycle. Get off the bike.
Step away from the bike.
Oh dear.
How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned? Anyway.
You are basically Nicolas Cage, aren't you?
You bitches. Killing me won't bring back your goddamn honey.
No, but we all know that the bees are becoming extinct because of our environmental factors.
There you go. So
it's all trance, mate.
It's all trance. Oh, Christ. Anyway, as a film, I really, really recommend this. I mean, it's my favourite film by Fatih Akin.
It is so good. It's so good.
I think it's his best film.
This is the first time that I didn't actually full on cry.
Head on cry.
Yeah, because normally I just cry. So.
Okay, well, that's quite interesting. So, I mean, why is that?
Why do you cry? I know now why you cry, but it is something I can never do. That's from Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
We're full of the quotes on this show.
Yeah, I mean, what can I say? Head On has opened up a whole cinematic Pandora's box, hasn't it? Why do I cry? I just, Fatih Akin. So let me tell you which films of his have made me cry when we watch them. So
this is my fault.
this is not your fault. I mean,
Right.
this was.
Well, I did make you watch them, in fairness.
I volunteered. I volunteered for this solemn duty. So the cut, I cried so much. It is so sad. I mean, it's a genocide movie, so you expect it to be sad.
Yeah, it's not going to be cheery.
No.
It's not like Life is Beautiful. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it is very naturalistic, and it's got some of the most, harrowing scenes that I've seen in a film. I cried in that one. In July, I cried. I don't know why. I felt very.
It's not even a sad film.
I just got so emotional. It really had me by the heart. Soul Kitchen, no, I didn't cry in that one. In the Fade, I cried in The Fade. Edge of Heaven, I cried in that. Head On,
God.
I cry in that. I mean, I didn't cry this time, but all the other times that I've seen it, and I've seen it a good few times, I just cried.
Does that put off your dates when you're watching the film with them?
Well, as I've said, I end up finishing it on my own because they just can't handle it,
Bunch of pussies.
Right? I think it's a film that just has this overwhelming emotional intensity. I mean, it's completely unhinged. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. It's so fucking stylish. It's so well edited. I mean, the music just works, every single time, it's hitting another bar on your internal xylophone. And I don't know what I did there, but this is.
I'm gonna have to steal that and use that in my everyday life.
You just do it, yeah. I think it's a film. I think about loss and mourning and despair, but also about hope and about love, and at once, about the futility of existence and the boundless possibilities that life offers us.
Cool. I mean, I like the film as well. I mean, what I like is mainly the performances, as I said. The two lead performances are great because the I say Chahit particularly is very, very. He's a very intense. He's a very watchable screen presence. It's a bit weird that he hasn't really been a lead in any of Akin's other films. It's quite strange. Like I say, he's been in a couple of his other films, but never in like a proper lead role. I'm not entirely sure why that is, because he's very watchable, I think.
Yeah, he's there. I mean, he's very charismatic.
Incredibly charismatic, absolutely. I think this is a pet peeve I have about modern cinema, is that everyone has to be pretty nowadays. That's kind of the first thing, and people don't think about charisma and star quality, because someone like Jack Nicholson, he's not hot. Well, all right, maybe he is to some people. Oh, is he not? Okay, well there you go. But like, he wouldn't be like a model as such, but he does have like massive charisma.
Yeah,
like, his charisma is like off the scale, which is kind of the point. So yeah, he's kind of like that to me.
Okay, well,
and yeah,
newsflash: Birol Unal is hot AF in this film. Damaged as he is, he is okay. He's happening.
All right. Okay. Well, on that note, then, so we've kind of already skirted around this issue already. So what I'm going to ask is this film a good date movie or a bad date movie?
Well, I'm sick and twisted. As I've said, I make my dates watch it, but it's probably...
So clearly, it's a good date movie for you.
Well, actually, I've tried to turn my life around, so I'm not going to do that anymore, Greg. And I would say it's a bad date movie, and I would caution people against watching it on a date.
Right. I am going to say that it's a good date movie, only because by the standards of the other films that I've talked about on the show, even ones with you, and I don't tend to talk about the really sick and twisted shit with you.
No, keep it classy, mate.
No, you are a woman of taste and decency, so obviously I would not make you watch such vile films as the ones I talked about on the last show.
They can't be any worse than City of Angels.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Like, you might want to watch some of them, and then you'll see for yourself. In fairness, I probably would rather watch Slaughtered Vomit Dolls than City of Angels because it looks fucking horrendous. And I've got Wings of Desire. Don't need City of Angels when that exists.
No, absolutely.
But anyway, my point is, in the grand scheme of things, in the grand scheme of like Cannibal Holocaust or the Vomit Gore films or August Underground or the Guinea Pig films or Sarlo or something like that, you're going to be fine in comparison. So I would probably say it's a good date movie.
Okay, so are you giving it a score? Are we still scoring?
I mean, you are scoring, so I think it's good, so I'm not giving it a score. But if you had to give it a bad date movie score from 1 to 5, so 1 being it's kind of bad, but it's all right, and 5 is, it's got people vomiting on each other in it. How would you score it?
3.5, because
that high.
Yeah, it's harrowing. I mean,
it's not even the worst date movie that we've seen of his.
I mean, it just puts the notion of human relationships into perspective, into question, if you will.
Is it a worse date movie than The Piano Teacher?
Well, that has vomiting in it. So.
It does actually have vomiting in it. Yeah, although that was fake. That was not real.
It was not. Was it? Was the recent vomiting movies? Was that all real?
That was all real, unfortunately. Yeah. As I said, I advise you to listen to the previous show because I talk about this in much, much more detail there about how much fun I had watching these films.
Yeah,
yes.
and not just on the podcast.
Indeed. Okay. So, all right. So, I think it's a good date movie. Miro doesn't think it's quite as good a date movie as I do, and that's okay. If you want to check it out,
can I interrupt you? Would you actually watch it on a date?
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, I do kind of judge it based on the person I'm with. So it doesn't necessarily matter what I think.
Right.
Like I went on a date with someone once. This is years ago, and they were telling me how someone made them watch Irreversible on a date, and they weren't necessarily appalled by that. They just kind of thought, wow, the balls on this guy.
Why that film?
I don't know. I think they must have done it as a joke. In, like, I like really fucked up films, so we're going to watch this film with a 10-minute long rape scene in it. Just cause. I don't know. It's a long time ago, but the impression I have from my searching the recesses of my brain is that it was not meant as a serious kind of suggestion. I mean, they did watch it, I think, but it's not like I'm turned on by rape.
No, I mean, Gaspar Noé is on my top 5 directors list, and I think there is some crossover between Gegen and Irreversible. not least in its kind of nocturnal color scheme and, the use of red and just like the rawness of emotion. And not just pain and like violence, but also love, and intimacy. So that's actually that's a comparison that I would make. But yeah, Irreversible, probably because of the rape scene and the fire extinguisher scene, is probably a worse date movie than this. Yeah.
Oh, by far. Yeah. I don't think you'll get anyone arguing that. Yeah, that wasn't a comparison that I thought we were going to get on this show. But
I'm full of surprises.
oh, you definitely are. That is definitely true. Definitely true. I do kind of see what you mean because it's from a similar period in time. So Irreversible was 2002.
Oh yeah.
And Head On is 2004. So yeah, it is very similar. Sort of emigre working in another country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. But yeah, what I was going to say, this is the part of the show where I bring up that if you want to buy this in Region 2, the version I own is from Soda Pictures. It's a very, very good DVD release, and that's the version that I watched for the show today. And if you own Region 1, you can buy it from a company called Strand Releasing. And, you've got a certain number of extras on there. There doesn't appear to be any kind of massive extra amount of extras. There's an audio commentary, and that's about it. But, yeah, so if you want to buy the film, that's what you would do if you wanted to do that.
Yeah, no nonsense. I once did actually spend the day walking around London with my prospective date looking for this film on DVD. We did discover it in the FOB in Covent Garden, so if in doubt,
it's a great shot.
Check that place out.
Yeah, I'm actually going to that FOP at some point this week because we're actually recording this before the Easter bank holiday weekend. So that's actually something that I've got planned for the weekend. Is I was actually going to go to that very FOP in Covent Garden and spend some of my money on physical media because that's what I do. That's like my version of crack, basically.
Oh dear. Well, I kind of feel like I want to make another funny comparison, if I may. A last one, I promise.
All right. Go on, then.
I kind of feel like this film is Fatih Akin's Eat, Pray, Love.
Okay. All right. You're going to need to run that by me. Go on. How is this his Eat, Pray, Love?
Well,
it doesn't have Julia Roberts in it.
No, that's true, but...
Or Javier Bardem.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, Birol Uno does have a bit of a Javier Bardem thing going on there.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, so literally just that.
Well, no, not just that. I think, the tagline of Fatih Akin is Eat, Pray, Love. Basically the antidote to all the violence and all the hate and all the pain is Eat, Pray, Love. If you look carefully in the ending credits of all his films, he thanks God first, then his wife Monique, then everyone else. So, he is a godly man. So that's the pray. There's a lot of food in his films. That's the eat. And of course, love, because love is the answer.
Or you could compare it to, I've just noticed on my DVD that I've got in front of me here, as a Hot Dog magazine called it Romeo and Juliet on Speed.
Literally. Don't take drugs, kids.
And on that note, I am going to pass it over to Myroslava. So as I said, you are the managing director of a Triptych Art Gallery. If there's anything you want to plug, please feel free to do so.
Well, we have a very busy program coming up. So, we're open 7 days a week, 11 till 7 on Kiev's picturesque Andriivsky Ulice. So come and check out the amazing array of Ukrainian contemporary art that we have on display. And I'm normally there, so come and say hi.
Yes, definitely. You should definitely come and say hi to Miro and thank her for doing this show, which I'm about to do now. So Miro, once again, thank you very much for appearing on the show. It's been awesome as always.
Peace out, bro.
Cool. We'll have to get you on again very, very soon. And I want to thank you all very, very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I hope you enjoyed listening to Fatih Akin's version of Eat, Pray, Love. And I'll see you on the very next show for more of the worst date movies ever. Thank you for listening. You can follow me on Twitter and suggest movies for me to review at Worst Date Movies. And don't forget to click subscribe wherever you're listening to this right now to never miss any future episodes of Worst Date Movies ever.